Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. I'm insanely nervous, but you can't tell because I'm very good at hiding it. And I just want to thank you all for coming out through the rain, wearing your denim and denim adjacent clothing, and also your non denim clothing, which I'm just happy you're clothed. Um, and yeah, so it was my birthday this weekend, and I had hot fun. And my book came out a couple weeks ago, so it's also an Aries, which I'm very happy for. So this is actually the third or fourth birthday I've had since, I don't know, the book's birthday. So I'm really happy to have the book's year zero start here at Asian American Writers Workshop, which has truly created / already had the community, so I really was plugging in. But really created a space where I feel like my voice could be understood and heard. So please use this for your fundraising drive next year. So without further ado, I guess, oh, there's food in the back, yes. So if you haven't eaten, we did get some Vanessa's dumplings. There's vegan and vegetarian, and I want to say gluten-free options, and a non-red meat dumpling situation back there as well. And there's this cake, which we will eat with much joy and abundance afterwards. And also the hashtag for this event is the Party of Blue Water, in case you want to abound in the celebration digitally. And also hello to all of the friends and the new friends in the audience. Okay, so I'm going to introduce Wo. I was in workshop with Wo last semester at NYU. There's some NYU folks in here, I know. And I was really struck by Wo's work as having so much exuberance for life in their writing and also in their work as a drag performer, and also in this PowerPoint video that I saw online somewhere. Like, it was good. It was really funny. Wo has a great social media presence. So if you see some posts from them with the hashtag that I just told you about, you should follow them. So, Wo Chan is a queer poet and drag performer living in Brooklyn. I'm reading the bio. Yeah, no, it's all about being in different registers. That's what poetry is about. And later I'll like take off my jean jacket as a like different register, you know. Okay. Wo has received fellowships from the New York Foundation of the Arts, Kundiman, and the Asian American Writers Workshop. As a member of Switch and Play, shout out to Switch and Play, which totally performs in my current neighborhood, but I'm moving, so sorry. Wo has performed at venues including the Whitney, National Sawdust, New York Live Arts, and Bam Fisher. Check them out at The Illustrious Pearl.
Congratulations, Yanyi. Welcome to the year of blue water. How's everyone? Can everyone hear me? I thought it'd be bluer. Hold on. Yeah, okay. I totally had like a lineup and everything, but after your amazing introduction and just how good you are on the mic, I'm like very intimidated. So I'm just gonna start reading whatever's in front of me. My life with newly painted nails is well, thank you. Beyond recall, it most melts against me. I make stands like wall frame, high-postured tinker toy, booger at Port Authority on the blue seat. Living is such wet data, and most me is breathing acrylic. So high consumption that animal is sick. My mother dances the domestician in soiled clothes. She hasn't been promoted in years. The boundaries are negotiable. One trick is to simply not wear your own blood down the apron's front. Where I'm from, I'll tell you, public art is gauche. They fell from hunger as the Republic raised its foundries. This is my interpretation of a, sorry, not this poem. This is my interpretation of a jean jacket. This is my interpretation of a poem. What do I make of my face except that it is on me, and its physicality, though not me, is how I've been addressed my whole boring life. When I was 9, I watched Aladdin and thought, after money, I wish for whiteness. I didn't even have all my teeth or vocabulary, just 2 yellow hands trying to catch the basketball my brother hurled at my face. When I was 19, my face erupted in nodular cysts, the bleeding Jupiter kind of sulfuric condensates and an alien registration. I had it all. A family, some secondhand sweatpants, a gender whose every sentence began, when I was a boy, I looked like my mother, now more like father, Baba, Dad, am a full yard of irony waiting for lightning to lick me back. Once I was on a gay date, just once, and a hunched over woman slipped me a white note. I thought it said Jesus, but instead, Mario Badescu, the skincare brand I would sell months later when I learned to smother the errata of hormonal bludgeonings. To the surface, other children saw dermatologists at the sight of a curly pube, while my own mother, when I was a boy, waited until her gallbladder exploded to get her gallstones removed. I watched her dimpled ass blow in the wind of the hospital hallway as she learned to walk again, and I slept in her bed and fed her plain contraband kanji. I am still talking about faces, the dented, fraxeled, mole-scarred, and trenched ones. I took a pill many times that induced apoptosis, cell death. I could barely afford 4 months of my lips peeling like World War II wallpaper. The sex I was not supposed to have did not happen anyways. As a nude myself, I am cratered irreversibly, so why must I explain the thoughts I've had on the things I never got to decide? They happened to me, happen all the time, and I changed. I learned I could keep changing. I must to keep myself. For a long time, I was writing out of feeling very hurt by various things. I don't know, that and facing deportation. And this summer, I started just writing daily poems, partly inspired by Marilyn Hacker, who wrote a lot of sonnets just being 12 days in April. So I wrote 6 days in June. So I'm just gonna read my June sonnets. Maybe a little bit extending beyond that. This is to say that I think I'm healing. But the more I say that, the more I feel like I have more to do. Yeah, so. I don't pay you guys for therapy. Okay. It's Pride Month. All the marvelous fish, they are psychic divas in the fish tank. We make such guts of the weirdo world that I've had enough of my own feelings for once. I don't like it either. The unvouched frustrations washing up wet in my jean shorts like last week's coupons. Can I really think my way out of this? I snap blurtingly. Jeremy, my therapist, returns tiltless. Well, why not? Lysergic acid in springtime made my eyeballs drip sweat, and I felt a new spine rise from ass to cervix. Gratitude is the central pillar of my life. That language could fall like nuts from a tree branch, leads me to feel the ground in disbelief. I wish I could wake up and make a sincere apology. I woke dreaming instead of a past lover rimming my asshole, his persona shifting into my brother's face. I moaned, sunbeams blasted through thin curtains. I felt the fabric of my boxers shift against my anus. I felt regret to wake, then joy to memory, then annoyance, shame at an old feeling, clean in the mirror of seawater, the face that is yours, wrinkling and transparent. Observe the beauty of an emotion. Observe the beauty of an emotion changing. You seem to believe that you must avoid discomfort in your life to actually live. My therapist said that. And then he told me he had to stop taking my insurance. At the rate of $250 a session, I could continue into his newly private practice. Was this an exercise in disappointment? I didn't feel a hint of sadness. Bored and then resigned, I felt poor at the trial-sized humanity of other people and myself, a smallness that could make the rainbowed mildew of my bathtub weep to grow lush. The cat, half in light and lounging in the window of the real estate office, he stares at the big people living, stacked domino on the blueprint of some Montague Street. I'll maybe read 3 more. The smiley barista remembers my name. Beauty on earth so blue, even the cheese flowers a culture with no democracy. Yesterday, for example, I ate the same sandwich I eat every week. Eggplant roasted in red pepper aioli, a focaccia jammed full by arugula, capers sweaty in browned butter. How have I come to love routine? I'm thirsty and abashed. The fabric of my childhood underwear, triple axles in the wind. Wow. The whole neighborhood watches me do emails, go to therapy. She shed revenge for forgiveness. I said it. I forgive you, slipping like a key beneath a door where never was a house attached. Is it beauty on earth so blue? Each side stalled, you're touched, for standing the sun. Its fat macula borne down grips. I wish, I saw, I fear, I heard, I dream like an emotion. This is not a feeling. This can be, I think, a conversation. I'm gonna How's everybody doing? Oh, I'll read from one from workshop. I was gonna make a joke and say I disavowed everything I wrote in class, and now I'm a sad, angry person. But you don't have to disavow your writing to do that. People like you more than you think. No wrong falls dirt on the ass-planted pasta sauce, squat kinky, mid-Broadway, starching scritch-scratched Zuquettes yodel plentitude in their Trader Joyful cooler bag, strapped in street-picked blue. Oh, she thinks it is autumn in her unstoned tracksuit. She commutes long distances. Dinner with her analyst flatbush friend. A butternut dildo squash. She wears vertical houndstooth. Slices vertical, Akira Kira plus Zook. This conversation on mothers is not going well. Freewheeling, they do not heal fast enough. She doesn't call. She's hung up on some, if not, oh, definitely the same childhood. She misses the thickness she admits. Life, clenching, is her own genius so angry it snags the oil-slicked cradle of fish, unblinking, that casts a shade of blue Tyvek. Flags laid, lighting the ground zero site of all feelings, begs for belief. The night softens its eyes on the unionized forest. The water unbraids itself, clear and limp. I love my neoclassical marbled eyebrows. I love this body made of bones, aluminium, the rubber of old doorstops. I have wanted to not exist, and I have wanted to be her. I have wanted some epic use for my excellent, enjammed body. I want the water to soften on the unionized forest. I want the clear night to limp into my eyes. Thank you all. Congratulations.
More of me. Finally. Thank you, Woe. That was beautiful. It's me again. It really is. So I am introducing my good friend, Erica Hunt. And Erica's amazing, not only because her Wikipedia page, you should really check it out. But we met in a Lauren Berlant class at Brooklyn Institute for Social Research, where my friend Rebecca was teaching. And Erica is really someone who, so she's born and raised in New York, and she's really helped me get out of the house. Honestly, she's basically someone who reminds me of the richness of the culture of this city all the time, and I just feel so grateful for her friendship, her work, and I'm so happy you're here. So now I'm gonna read the bio in the other voice. Erica Hunt is the author of Local History, Roof, 1993, Arcade, Kelsey Street, 1996, Peace Logic, Carolina Wren, 2002, A Day and Its Approximates, Tracks, 2003, and Time Slips Right Before Your Eyes, Belladonna, 2006. With Dawn Lundy Martin, she co-edited the anthology Letters to the Future, Radical Writing by Black Women, Core Press, 2018. It's amazing. I really stand this anthology. Everyone should teach it. Hunt is the Parsons Family Professor of Creative Writing at LIU Brooklyn. Please welcome Erica. I took the...
You could use that music stand. Yes, thank you. I thought, congratulations again. What a feat. If you don't know this, Yanyi has several superpowers. A superpower for friendship, clarity, boldness. I want to do a couple of things. First, I want to read a poem from the Air of Blue Water. Dream Diary. Are you going to read this? Good. You're awake, then you are standing. Then the last thing that you dreamed will unfold its field of memory. What you touch will come to life. A whole room sprung in the backwards words of people untalking to you. Walking reverse with such confidence until you reach another room. There stands this person who is also a talisman. In the dream, it doesn't matter when they loved you. In the dream, when you talk, the butterflies are orange and then blue. And together, you lead the rabble to the square where you touch this person and then leave them. And on cue, a flock of pigeons will soon want nothing but to return to you. And on cue, the cedars become green and then stone. And this person, on making love from you and placing the pieces elsewhere again on earth. Until before that. Until the somewhere else before you agreed to move. Then you are language too. Backwards words unstuck to the dream as the dream began to happen. And the ghosts inside the many rooms rustle nude inside the blue water. And the ghosts inside the many rooms illuminate the many walls. It's great, right? So I thought I would read from an essay a little bit about poetry, and I think this is what connects. Poetry is for me the practice of inquiry, in part a way of knowing better what I know only in outline, toward a greater intensity of thinking about and through experience. During my earliest years, poems were often about an experience, melancholy and awe. Later, the poems I was most drawn to were enactments of thought. That's what these poems do. By enactment, I am gesturing to a quality in prose as well as poetry, the capacity of a line to bear the trace of its own thinking. to be a thinking on the page. I came to notice and admire this kind of poetic nimbleness in a sentence by James Baldwin. For instance, the capacity to be simultaneously about something and to evince the presence of a thinking heart, a singing mind. That to be, quote, that to become a Negro man, let alone a Negro artist, one had to make oneself up as one went along. That's familiar. This had to be done in the not at all metaphysical teeth of the world's determination to destroy you. The world had prepared no place for you, and if the world had its way, no place would ever exist. Now, this is true for everyone, but in the case of a Negro, we might as well say artist of color, this truth is absolutely naked. Yet inquiry, the project of knowing critically this world for which we are charged with making livable, is more than the reproduction of the self's thinking, however deep. Writing is for more than ourselves, however that is defined. Problematically, I think. It is for our neighbors and strangers we may never meet. Writing is connected to making, not always the sense we're given or socialized to make, but to making out of the silences, the brutal facts, the nameless pleasures, the buried joy. A way making, a way out of no way, with whatever gifts we possess, forward and towards. I'm gonna skip. What does poetic language do? It expands the discernible, the differentia and frontiers of which would not be discoverable if we were restricted to ordinary instrumental language. Anesthetized sensation turns into thought. My body, her body, their body, his body, transformed from too salty into bird call and heat. What does poetic language do? Again, it brings his face into view. It fills in lines with faded music, a new caress. What does poetic language do? It turns over the river bottom, smelling drenched brown and green. What does poetic inquiry do? In a subjunctive mood, it jostles an intellectual alterity, even in the same thinking self. What does poetic inquiry do? It extends our capacity to hold tension and mortality as a springboard with new ways of feeling and thinking. What does poetic language inquiry do? It remakes swerve, switches figure and ground in the coordinate of swoon and nerve and sheer audacity. What does poetic inquiry do? It brings the reader in close, coming closer, close, close. A mutual listening, voices mixed with the wind in the harsh hush, 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 hush arbor. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Erica. As I was coming over here, I was thinking about the last time I believe that Monica and Yanyi interacted, which was at an event we held about Teresa Cha and a reading of dictée where I was trying to strong sell Yanyi to read in front of hundreds of people Chinese ideograms from dictée, at which point Monica said, "You know you're at some kind of Asian function when you're made to feel guilty about not knowing your language." So I'm not sure if any of you can relate to this, but I want to share that story and thank Monica for being here to read. As you know, she's the author of a number of books, Barter, Ignatz, which was shortlisted for the National Book Award, and Blackacre, which came out recently, which was longlisted for the National Book Award. She teaches at Princeton University and is a member of the Racial Imagery Institute, and she's been a board member of the Asian American Writers Workshop for a very long time. I think she was one of the first board members I brought on when I started. I'm glad that she can be here to share in Yanyi's success, so let's give her a hand.
Hey y'all, I'm so excited to be here to celebrate the year of of Blue Water and Yanyi's book. So I thought to celebrate, I would read something really, really dense and impenetrable, which is also kind of a huge downer. But anyways, I thought that this is one of the few rooms where I could imagine. Does anyone in the house know who Crown Prince Sado is? We have one hand. Well, that's better than I usually get. Okay. So Crown Prince Sado is this like 18th century prince in Korea, and he's the crown prince. And he marries this amazing woman named Lady Hyekyung, and they give birth to a son who's the heir afterwards. And then he goes kind of homicidally insane. He rapes and kills over 100 people, mostly courtiers. There's not much that anyone can do about this because it's an absolute monarchy and he is the crown prince. And even his father, the king, is constrained because if he were to kill his son, to declare him a murderer and execute him, this would taint the succession. So his grandson would no longer be eligible for the succession. If he were to declare him insane, the same result would ensue. If he were to commit suicide, the same result would ensue. So what the king did eventually was he ordered that Sado appear before him, and which he does on a hot July day in Seoul. And the king orders a rice chest to be brought. A rice chest is just what it sounds like. It's a box. It's about maybe 4 foot by 4 foot by 2 foot. He orders Sado to get into the rice chest, which Sado does, and about 8 days later, Sado dies. And yeah, a huge downer. The other story is not as much of a downer, but close. It's the story from Greek mythology of Pasiphae, who many of you will know is the wife of King Minos of Greece and mother of the Minotaurs. This is starting to sound a little familiar to some of y'all. Okay, so the deal is, so the gods send this white bull from the sea, and the king is supposed to sacrifice it to Poseidon. But rather than doing that, he keeps the bull for his own herds. And so in revenge, the gods make the queen, Queen Pasiphae, fall in love with the bull. And so she orders the inventor Daedalus, who happens to be working for them at the time, to build her a wooden cow. And she gets inside the cow, and she crouches there, and she waits for the bull to impregnate her. Which the bull does, and then she gives birth eventually to the Minotaur, which of course is imprisoned in the labyrinth, also built by Daedalus and later killed by the hero Theseus. Backstory. Okay, now I'm going to read my poem. Study of two figures, Pasiphae Sado. One figure is female, the other is male. Both are contained. One figure is mythical, the other historical. To the extent that one can be said to have existed at all, they occupy different millennia, different continents. But to the extent that one can be said to have existed at all, both figures are considered Asian, one from Colchis, one from Korea. I should have mentioned that that Pasiphae is from Colchis in present-day Turkey. She is related to Circe, to Medea, to a whole bunch of sorceresses and evil women who are considered Asian in the Greek mindset. To mention the Asianness of the figures creates a racial marker in the poem. This means that the poem can no longer pass as a white poem, that different people can be expected to read the poem, that they can be expected to read the poem in different ways. To mention the Asianness of the figures is also to mention, by implication, the Asianness of the poet. Revealing a racial marker in a poem is like revealing a gun in a story or like revealing a nipple in a dance. After such a revelation, the poem is about race, the story is about the gun, the dance is about the body of the dancer. It is no longer considered a dance at all and is subject to regulation. Topics that have this gravitational quality of aboutness are known as hot button topics, such as race, violence, or sex. Hot button is a marketing term coined by Walter Kitchell III in a September 1978 issue of Fortune magazine. The term evokes laboratory animals and refers to consumer desires that need to be slaked. The term hot button suggests not only the slaking of such desires, but also a shock or punishment for having acted on those desires, a deterrent to further actions pursuing such desires, and, by extension, a deterrent to desire itself. Violence and sex are examples of desires and can be satisfied, punished, and deterred. Race is not usually considered an example of desire. Both the female and the male figures are able to articulate their desires with an unusual degree of candor and specificity. Both are responsible for many sexual deaths. The male figure says, "When anger grips me, I cannot contain myself. Only after I kill something, a person, perhaps an animal, even a chicken, can I calm down. I am sad that your majesty does not love me and terrified when you criticize me." All this turns to anger. Your majesty here refers to the king, his father. The female figure is never directly quoted, but Pseudo-Apollodorus writes that she casts a spell upon the king, her husband, so that when he has sex with another woman, he ejaculates wild creatures into the woman's vagina, thereby killing her. Although the punishment is enacted on the body of the woman, this punishment is meant to deter the king from slaking his desires. Both figures, royal themselves, are angry at the king, but neither attempts to kill the king, which would be political. Instead, they displace this anger onto other unnamed deaths, which are considered sexual but not political. Both figures have spouses known for strategy, for self-preservation in politically tumultuous times, times of many unnamed deaths. Both figures are counterfoils to their strategizing spouses, figures of excessive desire requiring containment. Both containers are wooden. Both containers are camouflaged with a soft, yielding substance, one with grass, one with fur. Both containers are ingenious solutions to seemingly intractable problems. One problem is political, one problem is sexual. They are both the same problem. They have the same solution. The male figure waits in the container for death to come. He waits for 8 days. His son will live. This ensures the succession, the frictionless transfer of power. The female figure waits in the container for the generation of a life. We do not know how long she waits. Her son will die after waiting in his own wooden container. This ensures the succession, the frictionless transfer of power. There are many artistic representations of both containers. The male figure's container is blockish, unadorned, a household object of standard size and quotidian function. Tourists climb into it and pose for photos, post them online. The cramped position of their bodies generates a combination of horror and glee. This in turn creates discomfort, the recognition that horror and glee should not be combined, that such a combination is taboo. The female figure's container is customized, lushly contoured. Its contours are excessively articulated to the same degree that her desire is excessively articulated. Artists depict the container in cutaway view, revealing the female figure within, awaiting the wild creature. The abject position of the female figure, on all fours, pressing her genitalia back against the hollow cow's genitalia, generates a combination of lust and revenge. This, in turn, creates discomfort, the recognition that lust and revenge should not be combined, that wild creatures and female figures should not be combined, that these combinations are taboo. Hot-button topics are taboo because they generate discomfort. The tourist can climb into the rice chest. The tourist can pose for a photo in the rice chest, then the tourist can climb out of the rice chest and walk away. The artist can look into the hollow cow. The artist can render the contours of the hollow cow, the contours of the female figure, then the artist can walk away. Both containers allow the tourist and the artist to touch the hot button, the taboo. The desire and the discomfort remain contained. Both containers allow the tourist and the artist to walk away. The male and female figures remain contained. Neither container, the rice chest, the hollow cow, appears to have any necessary connection to race. To mention race, where it is not necessary to mention race, is taboo. I have not mentioned the race of the tourist or the artist. The tourist and the artist are allowed to pass for white. The tourist and the artist are not contained. I have already mentioned the race of the poet, but to the extent that the poet is not contained, the poet is allowed to pass for white. I have already mentioned the race of the male and female figures. The male and female figures are contained. The rice chest and the hollow cow are containers. The rice chest and the hollow cow are not the only containers in this poem. Colchis and Korea are containers in this poem. Asianness is a container in this poem. Race is a container in this poem. Each of these containers contains desire and its satisfaction. Each of these containers contains discomfort and deterrence. Each of these containers contains a hot button, a taboo. The tourist and the artist can enter each of these containers. The tourist and the artist can touch the hot button and walk away. Each of these containers separates the slaking of desire from the punishment of desire. Each of these containers is an ingenious solution to a seemingly intractable problem. They are the same problem. They have the same solution. Each of these containers ensures the frictionless transfer of power. Each of these containers holds a male or female figure. The name of the male figure can be translated as "think of me in sadness." The name of the female figure can be translated as "I shine for all of you." Thank you so much. And I'm so excited for Yanyi. Are you going to?
So we're really delighted to celebrate Yanyi, who, as you know, was one of our first Margins Fellows at the Asian American Writers Workshop. And to say a few more Wikipedia-like items, Yanyi also received a fellowship from Poets House and has been published in a variety of journals, including Poetry, Tin House, A Public Space, Granta, and Offhand. Yanyi currently serves as an associate editor of Foundry. Now, how many of you have already got the book, which is incidentally for sale at the back of the room? Well, if you've read it, you know clearly it is part of a growing body of work, which is kind of trans literature or immigrant literature or trans-immigrant literature. And I think one thing that becomes clear when reading it is the way that transness is a figure for a type of relationality. A relationship between a before body and after body, or a body of one gender or another. What Yanyi does is do something to sort of disembody this type of relationship, where it becomes a kind of relationship between, different types of selves, a relationship between associations of one identity and another. If you think of transitioning in this sort of relational way, there are a number of different types of leaps from kind of point A to point B throughout the book. Migration is a kind of relationship between, your present or future self and your past self or your mother country. Also, the relationship between the kind of traumas of your body, but also the anxieties that you might feel that might disembody you from your own body. This is a book, if not of emotions recalled in tranquility, then of emotions recalled in therapy. There's also a sense of this sort of relational that's more vertical, that's one that's through time. The relationship that's generational between mother and daughter or mother and son, and also a kind of relationship between the ego and the more subconscious lives of dreams. All these relationships are occurring through time and space, and maybe to digress for a moment, one thing I often say about the workshop is that we're kind of like TARDIS. Does that mean anything to anyone in this room? In that when you read a book, you can travel through time and space. And one way I thought we could celebrate tonight is to bring an object from someone who is in a totally different time and in a totally different space. So we're going to play a short video right now. Rob.
Hi everyone, my name is Jyoti Natarajan and I'm saying hi from my backyard here in Portland, Oregon. I wish I could be there in the space tonight, but I'm happy to be able to send this video to help introduce Yanyi. I wanted to start by really going back to the Year of Blue Water, the collection. In writing, I invite you to my life, Yanyi writes in the second poem of the Year of Blue Water. It's a poem in which writing letters is a way to be alone without necessarily being alone. A feeling that a lot of us writers probably recognize. We enter the Year of Blue Water and move through these concise, clear-sighted contemplations. some that follow on encounters with the pain of the past, others that follow on moments in time spent with chosen kin, including writers and their texts. And in revisiting all of these, there's continually something revealed about seeing the self, remaking the self. When I read the lines, the impulse to know someone else before you reveal yourself, the impulse to know someone else because you have never been asked to reveal yourself, I felt like it was a reminder that this invitation, that I invite you to my life that Yanyi writes in that second poem, is to join in a kind of uncertainty. Irene Sue wrote a really lovely review of the book in the Lantern Review, where they write, the year of blue water, in the year of blue water, clarity is a process rather than a state to be achieved. Yanyi moves with clarity then through these prose poems, as someone who is Chinese American, an immigrant, who is trans, a writer, a friend, who is a student of the world. I am worth the work of transformations, Yanyi writes, as in I do not fear how I will emerge from myself or how many times. I was drawn to this idea of clarity as process, again, as Yanyi characterizes silences and nothings with a certain poetic significance. Silence is where meaning is born, he writes in one poem. Poetry is where nothing goes. There is no stagnation in these poems. Throughout the collection, we're reminded of a desire and insistence to be in conversation, itself a kind of movement. It's not a surprise for a poet who is a critic in search of others' voices. In a poem that is an appreciation of Maggie Nelson's propensity for references, he writes, there are so many people threaded and connected through the linear progress of sentences. It reminded me of how Yanyi writes early on in the book, also a poem that begins with writing letters. Over the course of one night, the objects in my apartment came alive. They are of and or for the people I am writing to. Pictures I took of them, poems that are inspired by their interests, with joy. When I am writing, I am never alone. There is a community that is loved through this book, that is kept alive by this book, a community some of whom are sitting around the space at AAWW this evening. Yanyi stepped further into the community at the Asian American Writers Workshop when he became a Margins Fellow in the spring of 2017 alongside Mariam Bazid, Kai Lucia Wu, and Rami Karim. Alongside these comrades, I saw the extent of his generosity and care, the depth of his belief in others he's in community with, and the dedication and discipline he brings to his work as a poet and critic. All of that is what brings us here today. Yanyi called me the day he found out he'd been chosen the winner of the 2018 Yale Series of Younger Poets Prize. And I remember the sounds of his stunned elation as he made sense of and worked to embrace being seen in this tremendous way. We couldn't be more excited to celebrate tonight, to know the joy in the recognition of a writer whose work we love, the joy in knowing that so many more are to become familiar with his work. Thank you, Yanyi, for bringing us this collection. And thank you all for joining us tonight for this reading. Without further ado, let's welcome Yanyi.
I was tearing up, and you know, it's good to feel your feelings. I have a Capricorn moon, so it's difficult. Thank you, Jyoti. Where's the camera? So I can. Thank you, Jyoti. That was such a beautiful introduction. Thank you, Ken, for also introducing. Thank you, Monica Woe and Erica, for being here. Thank you to the interns and to Tiffany for really making the space come even more alive with blue. And thank you all for being here. I too many tears. Okay. So, and you know, I was joking earlier, like I'm gonna have to bring tissues for other people because my book like makes people cry apparently, and now it's like, oh, I was the one who needed the tissues. So, to start, I wanted to read two poems by poets who are not me, just because I believe in the ancestral heritage of not just literature but of community. So, I didn't pick which order I would read them in. So the first one I'm going to read is In Honor of Myth, by Linda Gregg, who passed away very recently, last month. I read all of her books actually like right before, so I was really blown away, and so I'm going to read this poem that's about death. The singers change, the music goes on. No one really dies in the myths. No world is lost in the stories. Everything is lost in the retelling, in being wondered at. We grow up and grow old in our land of grass and blood moons, birth and goneness. We live our myth in the reoccurrence, pretending we will return another day, like the morning coming every morning. The truth is, we come back as a choir. Otherwise, Eurydice would be forever in the dark. Our singing brings her back. Our dying keeps her alive. So the first time I read poetry was through Poetry and Translation. So I wanted to read a poem called Places We Love, this is a place that I love. The fact that you're all here creating this community tonight, and maybe 4 other nights beyond this, it can become a place that we all love. So here is Places We Love by Ivan Lalic. He's a Serbian poet. Places we love exist only through us. Space destroyed is only illusion in the constancy of time. Places we love we can never leave. Places we love together, together, together. And is this room really a room or an embrace? And what is beneath the window? A street or years? And the window is only the imprint left by the first rain we understood, returning endlessly. And this wall does not define the room, but perhaps the night your sun began to move in your sleeping blood, a sun like a butterfly of flame in your hall of mirrors, the night you were frightened by your own light. And the store leads into any afternoon which outlives it, forever peopled with your casual movements as you stepped like fire into copper into my only memory. When you go, space closes over like water behind you. Do not look back. There is nothing outside you. Space is only time, visible in a different way. Places we love, we can never leave. So most of this book is prose poems, and I'm going to just pause between them. They're mostly untitled. I'm working on being alone today. It's the new year. I start with drunk dreams and text to Diana about carrying our homes with us. I think about who I want to write letters to. Joe, Catherine, Mary. It comforts me to write letters. They remind me that, They remind me that there is someone listening on the other end. Likewise, I have received writing that felt made for me. People who are dead want to talk to me. I'm writing. I invite you to my life. I tell my therapist that my anxiety made solitude unbearable, and that I was easing back into being alone by writing letters, mailing things. Over the course of one night, the objects in my apartment come alive. They are of or for the people I am writing to. pictures I took of them, poems that are inspired by their interests, with joy. When I'm writing, I am never alone, I say to someone who says that that is probably right. That is what we need right now. Agnes Martin says to me that I am the source of my own response. The artist is not responsible for the onlooker. It can't be helped that I have no control of my family. They may leave me. I accept that. We didn't have cable. We had a satellite dish that absorbed wavelengths. Despite being labeled aliens, this is the closest we would get to extraterrestrial. The plane rides count too, 13 hours at a time, which is also the time difference to China. All we did as aliens, we did because at some point, it is easier to be lonely than to continue working. Opportunity did not work for us. To be a foreigner was to be a guest in all houses, to not know manners, to not have a past. Every day was a day when we started over. Every day we were so rootless, we had to make the same friends over and over again. Doreen and Legion are generous. They want to know about me. We spend most of the afternoon talking about the things I've been thinking and the life that I live. In fact, I like it. It seems so selfish to want to be known. We go through my baby photos. In this photo, I'm eating, and Doreen says that my house looks like her house, that she, too, took many photos like this, small hands each holding a chopstick, the rice bowl in between. What I also mean to say is that I recognize the focus, the impulse to know someone before you reveal yourself, the impulse to know someone else because you have never been asked to reveal yourself, the impulse to know someone else because otherwise you do not know yourself, the impulse to know someone else because you're self-conscious of your whole self, the one that fills up too many rooms, so much space. The impulse to hide how much space you need. The impulse to hide what you need. The other kids made fun of our house, Doreen says of her American friends. I screw my face with incredulity, but I completely understand. Here's what it's like if it's hard to put yourself first. You genuinely feel happiness when someone else's needs are fulfilled. At least, this is what you know as happiness. The relief of not being seen, of having someone preoccupied with themselves. Well, that's not exactly right. There is relief in seeing another person being happy. Being happy makes it possible for that other person to love someone. In my case, I want another person to be able to love me. Agnes Martin tells me that I need not fear being alone. To be alone is to face not one fear, but multiple fears, and to know them enough to differentiate them. When I am alone in the worst way, I'm trapped with myself. Something in me doesn't want me to live. No. Something in me doesn't want me to continue. It must not be life, what I've been doing. It can't be life to not want to live. It was graduation, and I had already said goodbye to so many people. Everyone else had plans and family to attend to, so we were alone. It was supposed to be a proud moment, but my thing, my life, had ruined it. At the time, I owned a small collection of Oxfords, undoubtedly masculine. Before she came, I hid them in a bag that I didn't move to my new apartment because I knew she would find them there. For 2 days, I wore shoes with no arch support. On the third day, I wore my brown Oxfords to be comfortable. No one looks at anyone's shoes. For the rest of the day, we were at the museum, and all she could talk about was my shoes. At the foldable table in my new apartment, she asked me if I was gay, which I had told her 10 years ago, but she didn't believe me. She asked me if I was gay, and I didn't say anything, but I cried. She threw away the shoes, and then we had dinner. When I did the dishes, I had to empty the rice onto my shoes, and I never saw them again. We watch TV to see a part of ourselves. Any part, any glimpse. We are searching for people living our same lives, who won't shy away when we watch them, see them, get to know them. We watch because we don't know how to ask questions, to invite the truth from others. We watch because no one has invited the truth from us, and we are searching for a direction that is more right or more possible than this one, which seems very exhausting to continue in, to go on in. 3 more. Last night, I had a dream about giving a speech on art. I had no notes and I felt awash with calm. Why is art necessary? The first line ran, and nothing was easier to answer because it is so unanswerable. It occurs to me that an answer would have ended my speech, and what I wanted was to ask something repeatedly, to spend my life on continuing the question. It is a certain life and not its answer that is worthy of being repeated. Invitation, request. Imagine every day you wake up to wild commitment. Wild as in not the same place, but the moving place, playing place, changing place. When I write through my happiness, I commit to it again. I commit to feeling deeply, not what happiness I have, but how I came to orbit around it, attract it, cherish it. I fall asleep and wake up. If there's a thing I want to teach me, it's how I live my light. Thank you everyone for being here. You tell me that the old you is dead. I'm also not who I used to be. The revolution is emotional. I found a reason to not fear death. I found more reasons to live, reasons to change what is living inside me and around me. The revolution is that I care about my own safety, that I believe my life is valuable and worth pursuing. As in, I'm worth the work of transformations. As in, I do not fear how I will emerge for myself, or how many times. I'm ready for Carly now. Thank you. I told Rob that I wanted Carly Rae Jepsen.